Have you ever had a money or career question you really wanted to ask, but didn't know who to go to or just felt uncomfortable even bringing it up? You're not alone. Talking about money can feel intimidating, even scary. And that's exactly what I'm trying to change. That's why I created a free virtual coffee chat, a casual, no pressure 20-minute conversation where you can bring one thing you're wrestling with and we'll talk it through. No judgment, no jargon, no sales pitch, just clarity, ease, and a real answer from someone who gets it. If you've got something on your mind, don't sit in the confusion. Book a spot at limitfreelife.com and let's sip and sort it out. Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to another great episode of the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and we are talking real estate today. I know people love this topic, and you are going to love our guest. He is so knowledgeable and seasoned and in all areas of real estate, and he teaches about real estate, and he has written a terrific new book called Build Real Estate Wealth. And I didn't say that quite well. Build Real Estate Wealth. There you go. His name is Joel Miller. And we're really going to get into all kinds of aspects. I'm hoping that this show will answer many of the questions that you have, whether you're thinking about becoming a real estate investor or you're in the process, or you yourself are a seasoned real estate investor. So without any more discussion, before we bring Joel in, I'm going to just tell you a little about him. So Joel Miller has been investing in rental properties since 1978 and flipping houses since 1991. He served in numerous leadership roles in his professional and personal circles, and he teaches real estate investing at both the beginner and advanced levels. He's also a hard money lender to other investors, as well as a trusted mentor, author, podcast guest, and benefactor to his community. Before all this, Joel started out obtaining a BA in accounting. So Joel, welcome.
Thanks, Michelle. Man, that's a lot to live up to. Did I really do all that?
You did, and more. That was actually, I think, too short a bio for you, but we'll get into it, and people will learn a lot more about how savvy you are in this space. And I know you and I had a call before the show, and I was so impressed with how early you got into this and how you got into it. And I'd love for you to share a little of how you became the expert that you are.
Well, first of all, I guess we should point out that although this book is in the real estate genre, build real estate wealth and enjoy the journey of rental property investing, the book actually covers more things than just that, which I think is how you and I connected for your show, because the beginning of the book deals a lot with mindset and getting education, before you even take your first steps. And then once I'm done teaching about how to buy and maintain property and tenants, we get into a lot of philosophical things in the book, like the relationship between riches and wealth and other best practices that apply not only to real estate investing, but to your life in general or any sort of business that you're in. So your listeners can be sure to probably find something that they can utilize here today, even though they don't necessarily want to learn all about real estate. We'll talk about other stuff than that. But just to answer your question, I like you, I don't know if your listeners know this. I know this. You have a degree in accounting as well, and have worked as a CPA. I actually. That's what my degree is in, but there are two things that happened to me in junior high school, actually, that really set me on the two main paths that I've been on in life. Number one, an investor built two four-unit apartment buildings right along my paper route at the edge of the subdivision. Of course, I got all those new tenants as customers on my paper route. But I have a distinct memory of it in about eighth grade, kind of sitting down in my bedroom and doing the math on what this whole rental property thing is all about, because we lived in the subdivision with our parents in homes that they owned, single family homes. And so these apartments that were kind of built at the edge they were the last lots that were purchased in the subdivision, and somebody put rentals up instead. That was a little different. Those people pay to live there, and somebody makes money on them doing that. So I remembered that, and I said, I want to do that someday, and I kind of put that in my back pocket. The other thing that happened was one of the older kids in the neighborhood built a pirate radio station in their basement with the flagpole in the backyard as the antenna. And pirate is illegal, unlicensed radio station, and very low power, of course. But I got to hang out there, and that's when I decided I wanted to be a disc jockey. So I did do radio production during high school. And when I went away to college, I made sure I went to a college that had a really good college radio station. Actually, I went to Grove City College. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania, halfway between Cleveland and Buffalo. Grove City is between us and Pittsburgh to the south. Really good accounting department and really good radio station, AM and FM. And I got on the air there. I was the only freshman on, and then I became program director sophomore year. And about halfway through college, then toward the end of sophomore year, I got called to come back and work at the big top 40 hour FM, radio station in our town as the weekend guy, so I finished college here in Erie, and but right about 6 weeks before I got out of college, that weekend job went full time. So I was finally able to take the calls from the kids at schools that one of the DJs at the station come out and do, sock ops or whatever, record ops in the gym. And that changed my life. Michelle, I went on and made $75, and quickly started charging more than that, and realized I could make more money in one night than I could make all week at the radio station on the air. And so I don't know if I've told you this, but I ended up leaving radio. I pioneered the mobile DJ business in this part of the country. So I was a mobile DJ for 35 years. 5,057 51 appearances, excuse me. Wow. You don't want to be wrong on that. But I retired from that in 2011. But not long after I did my first mobile DJ appearance, I did buy my first rental property in January of 1978. And so, although I also started an accounting practice after college, I did sell that because the DJ business was picking up, and I was buying more rental property. And so something had to give. And at that point, I started concentrating more on the DJ work and buying more rental property and so on. And that's one of the premises of my book, is that real estate does not have to be an either or thing. You can choose to add rental real estate to your life and not give up something else you're passionate about. I really wanted to be an entertainer, and I enjoyed doing that for all of that time. And so a lot of people are involved with things that they're passionate about. It might be a great job or some sort of career or some real heavy hobby involvement or something like that, they think, well, I can't invest in real estate, I don't have time or whatever. But this is the book that shows you how to do that, so that you can add to the income that you might have from your passion that you are involved in. It's not really providing you enough income, or maybe no retirement, because certainly real estate is for retirement as well, And so that is a good premise of the book. But it's not just for beginners. It's for people that are already established and are looking for some game-changing info that can kind of supercharge, what they've already got going on. So as I say, I embarked on the DJ career and the rentals, and in 1991 began flipping houses before flip was a real estate term. When all the TV programs started using it to flip this, flip that, whatever. And so we used to call it quick turn properties, And then in 2018, I became a hard money lender, which is a private lender to other investors. And so it gives me a lot of pleasure to be involved in the equation for the journeys of other investors that are a little earlier on in their journey. And then in 2020, started during COVID when we're all sitting around can't go out. I started making notes, and it took me 4 years, but I wrote Build Real Estate Wealth, and it came out in October of 2024, and it's become a bestseller. So brings us to today, doing all these podcasts in support of the book. This is how you do a book tour these days.
Yeah, it is. That's true. Well, I love that. And I loved your story. I love that you had a career that you were passionate about and also an alternative way to generate income that you were also interested in. But, I think in today's world, it feels like every show now, we've got a little bit of a theme of how much the world is changing. And so, what used to work needs to possibly be tweaked a little bit for the upcoming, decades ahead. So having, a second source of income, I think is more important now than it ever was. It was always a great thing. I mean, my father-in-law always told me from day one, you got to have real estate. He had commercial real estate and he had apartments and all kinds of things. And he was a dentist and he made a fine living as a dentist, but it was real estate that really.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you said that. This guy had a dentist is considered a high-paying profession, and yet he feels he made his wealth in real estate.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, is real estate has made more people wealthy than any other single type of investment. Lots of people, of course, invent something or they do fall into some really high-paying job and make a lot of money at it. But as far as something that you can just plan out and do, there's nothing like income producing real estate.
Right. And I love the idea that, today where job security is less than it used to be, it is very advantageous to have something that, should you get laid off or should something change with your work, environment in some way that impacts you, you have this to support you, to focus on. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why it can be a great addition to your life.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little side story that gives a little credence to what you're talking about there. In 2020, when I began writing this, my son, who is 19 right now, he'll be 20 in December 2025. It was becoming apparent that he had an interest in what he has seen me doing, over the years in our house. And so I kind of wrote the book as though he might be the only one who reads it. Because it's like everything I need him to know, because he was going to likely take over properties we had, not just start from zero, And so just skipping ahead, I can tell you he graduated from high school in 2024 and bought his first rental property about a week after he got out of high school. And he's now in his sophomore year at Penn State, although we have a branch campus of Penn State in Erie that has a really highly rated business school here. And so he's in the business school. And this means he can stay at home and live with us while he's going through college and also acquire property here, which would be hard to do if he went to main campus, obviously. But he bought his second rental property about April of his freshman year.
Wow.
And it's just beginning as we record this of sophomore year. And this is what he wants to do. I told him he's still got to get an education in this sort of stuff. Michelle, I don't think it's going to be accounting, sorry to say. But, if you asked him right now, he would tell you it's matrix finance.
Yeah.
I'm not as much of a numbers nerd as you and I might be. I don't know if I told you, I've kept a record of everything I've earned and spent since I was 11.
You did tell me that, which I thought was fascinating. I mean, much nerdier than I am. I have not done that. That's really.
Oh, so I'm trying to instill what he needs to know regarding record keeping to run the rental properties and so on. But so he's already bought a nice car for himself. I mean, not that I recommend you run out and buy expensive things just because all of a sudden you can qualify for the payment, which I'm sure is a discussion for your podcast. You talk about stuff like that. But, with all these properties he's got, he had enough to get a nice car or used car, 2022 Mustang Turbo.
Oh, yeah. Every 19-year-old
But but he did it on his own using the cash flow statements from the rental properties. He found the car on his own. He had a Ford dealership in Kentucky. Went down there and got it on his own, drove it home, got the loan on his own based on his cash flow from his rental properties as a student without even having a job.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting for anyone listening. And I'm sure. Okay. So let's do this. Let's, with him as an example, if you were to tell, a young person that they should do this and they looked at you and said, well, I can't, I don't have a job or whatever. What would you, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, in order to do anything like this, I think you agree, you have to develop discipline. You have to develop the discipline to, at any given time, be spending less than you make so that you are always putting money aside for not only your obligations, but also saving for the next thing that is hopefully not just another thing that depreciates after you buy it, but another thing that makes money. In other words, you gain wealth by acquiring assets that produce income, be they real estate, copyrights, patents, whatever. Those are some quick examples, So you have to develop the discipline and not commit yourself to things that are going to be beyond your means and put yourself in trouble. Now, selfishly, I was happy to see him get this because then he was off of my insurance policy. So, because when the insurance company thinks he's driving one of our cars, our insurance with a teenager is much higher. But believe it or not, his insurance on that newer model sports car is less than the upcharge for him to be on our policy with a plain old Camry that's older than that, So, but there's an advantage here. He's a college age person who we're happy to have living at home, and he certainly doesn't have the living expenses that many people obviously have if they're already on their own. And I realize there are other challenges that you have to maintain a home, that are beyond what a college student would have living at home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And that is an opportunity for kids if they have a way to save in certain areas.
Yeah, but the key is okay, it's discipline. Like, okay, you live at home, you don't have these expenses, you do have this income from your properties. He did work over the summer at a job. I worked for one of the other landlords on their crew, W-2 job, learning stuff that I wasn't going to be able to teach him because we didn't have those sort of projects going on at the moment.
Yeah.
So he learned other things. And learning how to manage money, which I'm going to say, and you're probably going to agree with me, kind of starts with being able to keep track of it. As an accountant, that's really what we're helping people do is keep track of what they have earned and spent and make decisions based on the reports that generates.
I'm going to just stop you there for a second because it's such a great point. And, there are a lot of sayings. I'm sure I won't be able to conjure one up out of my brain in the moment, but about, what you track multiplies. And that's not the saying, but there are better ones than that. But basically, that's the gist. So you're focused on it. You're tracking it. If you're trying to, earn more income and you're tracking your income, that's, a pathway to manifesting more income. What I'm curious about is when people hear the word tracking, they think of budgeting. They think of boring historical data that we're just writing down and, for no reason. But there's a huge rationale for doing this. And it's not just accounting. It's, in many ways, it's looking toward the future at the opportunities that you can have as a result of what you know. So, I love that you bring that up because tracking is a bit of it's people don't do it. That's all I can say. And it's really, really valuable.
Yeah. And the other reason for accounting, shall we say, is for taxation preparation. I mean, preparation of tax returns.
Yeah.
So I talk about that a lot in the book, that those are the two main reasons, keeping track so that you can make business decisions, and keeping track so that you don't overpay your taxes or underpay your taxes and get in trouble later,
Well, and from a tax standpoint, real estate can be extremely beneficial. So you want to just speak to how real estate can work in your favor.
Yeah, there's several really favorable treatments of real estate in the tax law. And I will say that this is probably because so many members of Congress on both sides of the aisle for generations, so many of them actually are also landlords. They own real estate as well. So I think they've made sure to pass a lot of things that are favorable to rental property. But the most obvious thing everybody at least knows the word is depreciation, which is a write-off each year of the improvement part of a property that's shown. You can't depreciate the land, but it's an expense that you get to have without any cash outflow, to get that year. So you can perhaps even with utilizing the depreciation laws that allow you to accelerate depreciation, and those laws do change from time to time. But instead of writing off a building on an even amount every year for 27 and a half years or whatever, you might be able to take a lot more depreciation in the early years, especially if you break out the equipment that's in the building and not depreciate that along with the building. You depreciate that on a faster schedule. So, having said that, I don't want to get too technical, but depreciation can perhaps even create a loss, even though you actually have a positive cash flow.
Right.
Won't last forever because eventually the depreciation will become so much smaller than it was at the beginning. And now you do have, more taxable income, even though you still have the same cash flow or maybe just a little bit more cash flow.
Right.
So yeah, depreciation. And another big thing is that income from rental real estate is considered passive income as opposed to income that would be taxed like your job, and that means that although the income from operating the rental property is included with your other taxable income, you are excluded, or that income is excluded from paying self-employment tax. Now self-employment tax, they might say, well, what the heck is that? If you only have ever had a W-2 job, you notice how there's a deduction for Social Security, FICA, I guess it's called. But what you may not know is that the employer is paying an equal amount. Well, let's say it's 7.5%. Like you're going to pay 7.5% of your paycheck, and the employer is going to pay 7.5%. So altogether, 15% is paid on that income. Well, if you're self-employed, you pay the whole 15%.
Right.
But if your income is, from rental property, you're going to pay the income tax, but you're not going to pay the self-employment tax. And then, as you probably know and can elaborate on, with the big beautiful bill, they've made permanent the 20% write-off off the top of income from businesses, before you're taxed. That's the section 1-something-9. And gosh, I wish I'd be a little better prepared to spit that out, but that's the safe harbor thing. And that just simply means, like, if you have a business of some sort, figure out what your net income is, take 20% of that, and don't pay tax on it. And so at first they weren't sure that real estate was included in that because it's passive income.
Okay.
But it has been worked out that, yes, it's included. Once again, thanks to our lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who all own real estate. So uh, they did make it available to rental property with a couple of caveats that are not hard to meet. First of all, you have to have at least 250 hours of work done on those properties each year. And that doesn't all have to be done by you. All the hours by contractors that work for you are counted here too, And the other thing is, and get back to record keeping, you actually have to have a little log of the hours you spent, just, you don't have to turn it in. You just keep it with your tax prep docs so that if you're ever audited and you're claiming the deduction, you can say, well, here's how I qualified by the hours. Here's my log from that year for doing that,
I'm thinking that because you wrote the book in part for your son, that the book includes all these ideas of what to track and why.
Yeah. There's a whole section in there about the tax implications of being in the real estate business. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it encompasses keeping track of your mileage on your car. I just went over this with him the other day. He had to go down to one of the rental properties from the house here. And I said, and I was going to go with him. So I said, where's your log, your mileage log? I said, okay, let's have it be in the mileage in the gas purchase book here, which, at least he's good at writing down when he buys gas, Yeah. But the government allows you a set amount per mile for business mileage. It changes every year, sometimes in the middle of the year. And I said, okay, let's use the booklet here, and you put the date, you put the location you're going to, and the general purpose. And when you get back to the house here, look on your odometer there, or tripometer, and see how many miles down to the 10th of the mile, and write it in. Because here's the deal: your little LLC is going to be able to reimburse you for your business miles based on that cents per mile that the government gives. And it's an expense to your LLC, which of course is an expense to you. You're the only member of the LLC. Yeah. But it's not income to you personally. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's a wash. It's a deduction here, and it's not an income over here. It's just a deduction.
Right.
No income,
Yeah. So, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So let's talk for a minute about just that. I mean, you did this right away. Your son did it right away. But there are a lot of people who have been waiting and, are no longer 19 or 20 and trying to, still that's been an idea that they've wanted to pursue, but haven't done anything about it. I mean, for those folks, they're working, maybe they even have a family. What is the advice as far as how to put their mindset kind of in the right space to allow them to go forward? I know a lot of people are always waiting until I have this much in the bank. I'm waiting until, I'm not so busy at work. I mean, there's a lot. And suddenly, 20 years have gone by and you're still waiting.
While you're waiting, what you should be doing is educating yourself. And I have it right in chapter 1. It's part of the title. It says, get some education. And the emphasis on the word some. You don't have to know everything before you take a step into real estate or retail or, some profession that you want, because we're talking a little more general here. You got to be careful about not getting caught up in the paralysis of analysis. But using real estate again as an example, you don't have to know everything about it before you buy your first property. But I recommend that you have some education. How do you get that some education? Read a book like mine. Join a local professional group that is comprised of like-minded people that are doing the same thing you're doing, whether it's real estate or some other profession that you want to be involved in, but particularly in real estate, because the deals are often made off market from one investor to another. Everybody's at a different stage of their investment journey. And like, for example, at some point you get to where you're selling stuff instead of buying stuff. Well, you know, the easiest place to do that is people that are earlier on in the journey and as buyers, and so educate yourself to the point that you can avoid big mistakes, but you don't have to know everything, because you're going to learn once you get started by doing. And if you get with other people who are doing the same thing, you're going to just learn from them, or even learn about a specific thing that comes up, a problem or whatever, that you have contact with other people in your group that can answer specifically something that you need to know about. And then as you go on, like in the real estate journey, you might discover more types of investing, more, an interest in different types of property than you started out with. And you will build on what you already know. But don't think you need to know it all before you take a first step. A lot of people, and I see them out there, they think, oh, I just need to go to one more. I just need to go to this boot camp. I just need to read this book. Hopefully it's my book, and then I'll be rich, and that's, and they never do anything. They're always at the meetings and they're always talking about how they're getting ready to, buy something. And then years go by and they don't do anything, because he just always trying to learn about how to do it. Meanwhile, people that started at the same time they did and just jumped in and bought something and asked questions when they didn't know, they're already second, third, fourth property.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think with anything, don't do it alone is one of the big messages, whether you're starting a business or you're buying real estate or, but even starting a family for that matter. I mean, like you say, educate yourself, talk to people. I think we get a lot of strength from being in groups where other people are doing this and talking about it and sharing their mistakes, because I think some of the reason that people put things off is just that fear of, what if I'm really mess this up and it, really hurts me. So there are a few things to wrestle with in your own mind about that may happen. I mean, I'm sure you haven't had, a home run with every single thing you've done to this point in real estate. It just doesn't seem like that would be possible.
I lost money on a few houses that we flipped. Although you got to make lemonade from lemons. I had a house 14 years ago that I got done with and just realized I had too much in it. I wasn't going to hardly make anything, and the market wasn't that great for a real profitable thing. So I actually sold it twice with a lease option. In other words, the people paid a fee for the right, but not the obligation to buy the property within, in this case, 2 years.
Yeah.
And the first people walked away. They had some come up and they gave up their lease option fee. The option expired. Second people, same thing. I just ended up somehow renting it out, regular rental after that. And in 14 years, I had 7 different families in there. When the last ones moved out this past June, it was time for an interior paint job. I did that basically thinking I was preparing it to rent it. And I got done. I said, hey, this place is never going to look any better than this. Market's good. I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
So that was a 14-year flip. Made $102,000 on the sale. Not to mention probably about 70 or 80 or more, I didn't really calculate, in net rental income over those 14 years.
Yeah.
If I would have sold it 14 years ago, might have made 5 or 10,000.
See, that's a great example. And it's also a great example of sort of pivoting idea-wise as you go. And I think that's important for people to understand. It's a little bit of a game where if things are changing, well, you change your strategy, And again, being around people who've had experiences like that and understand them, and without the experience, you don't know what the options are. I mean, that whole idea of the lease to buy option, that's not something that everybody would think of until they get a little more educated, as you say.
Yeah, and then there are the people that are looking externally for reasons why they can't take their first step. Like there are some people, like we were talking about, that internally they feel they don't know enough. And then there are people that think, I know everything, but the market's terrible right now. Interest rates, the stock market, house price. You know what? I've been in this business almost 48 years. I've been through so many economic cycles. I will tell you that a good deal is a good deal. In any given market, there's a way to make deals. There are people that need to sell property and are going to sell it at less than what it's worth. And you might have to change your techniques of trying to acquire the property or, market for the property, whatever. But like you say, you pivot, you adjust, and you just keep going. Don't sit on the sidelines. When I got into this business, 1978, Jimmy Carter was president, struggling with inflation. Prime was 22.5%. It's what, 7 now, and when it was 3.25 for 4 or 5 years recently, that's not normal.
Yeah.
That's not normal. It's more normal now.
Yeah.
With what it is. So I was a tenant still for the first 5 years. I was a landlord. And so in 1983, when I bought my first personal residence, I was pleased to get 12.5% interest. It was great. Now eventually refied that to a lower interest rate as things went down, but point is that you shouldn't use too much of this economic conditions sort of argument to stay in the sidelines.
Yeah.
And I can really only speak for real estate. I do understand that there could certainly be certain areas of other businesses like retail or whatever the examples might be, who are very much more affected by economic cycles, and there could be bad reasons to go in at certain times. I get that, but as far as real estate, it's not going anywhere. They're not making any more land, as Will Rogers said, and everybody's got to have a place to live all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I think there's a tangible quality to real estate that makes it easier for people to understand. We all live one way or another, whether we're renting or owning, or we all, pretty much live in a home. And so it's something we understand. So I think that makes it a more engaging investment to some people.
Sure. And now another thing about mindset, and this would apply not only to real estate, but you have to get rid of preconceptions that you have for entering a given industry. I think every industry has, or line of work, has certain preconceptions that go with it, either to the good or to the bad. But real estate, one extreme is, it's all bad tenants and broken toilets. And the other extreme is that, it's so easy money, it's all rainbows and unicorns. It's somewhere in between. So when you talk about mindset, it's discipline and understanding yourself and taking an assessment of your, not only your personal situation, but your financial situation, and it's becoming aware of preconceptions so that you understand what is a false preconception and what is the truth, but not, like I say, thinking you got to know everything before you take a step.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That's great. And, there's also that mindset around debt, because there are a lot of people, this is going to typically require, acquiring some debt. And people do have a lot of fear around that. I mean, some people don't, but some people, they've been brought up that, stay out of debt. So you have to get over that a bit.
Well, yeah. And that's a preconception that I think that you're right. You have to get over it, because especially when it comes to real estate, which is something that is securing the debt, you now can start to delineate between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is when you borrow money to go on vacation, or you borrow money to buy a depreciating asset that isn't going to make you any money. Unless you truly have the disposable income. Now, a car is a depreciable asset, but it makes you money because it gets you to your job, or it gets you to your properties or whatever. So that's, I get that. You're not going to sell cars at a profit, but for the most part. But on the other hand, real estate is something that isn't going anywhere, and it secures the loan. And assuming it's rental real estate, the tenants are actually giving you the money to make your payments. And when your payments are all done, they still have to pay rent, even though you don't have a mortgage anymore,
Right.
And so, you have to be prepared to use leverage. And if you come from a family that the mindset is truly, absolutely don't go into debt for anything, pay cash for well, you're going to have to change that thinking to get somewhere in real estate, because real estate does run on OPM, which stands for other people's money. And that's, using leverage. In other words, using other people's money to buy property that produces income and appreciates in value. That's leverage. That's how it's done in this business, which gets back to the importance of developing relationships with banks and being able to present your financial position to the bank. Which brings me to one of the chapters in my book, which is a whole chapter on preparing personal financial statements for lenders to increase your likelihood of getting your loan approved. I bring into that chapter stuff that you probably know from being an accountant, that it's kind of coming from that background, it combined with my own experience with applying for a lot of loans, mortgages, over the years, how to present the information that is necessary for these underwriters in the banks that are 20s and 30 something people that just can't wait till 4:00, that are checking boxes and making financial decisions about your future. You have to make it easy for them to understand, because they'll understand what you presented. It's more likely it's just going to be rejected. I mean, when you don't understand something, you fear it and you get away from it.
Yeah.
And
Beautifully put. I love that. And I love that that's in your book. I feel like that is, it's all the preparation, and you talked about discipline earlier. This informs you, in what areas do you really need to be disciplined, and how do you sort of put that on display for people? But you mentioned that discipline in relation to younger people, but it applies to everybody. I mean,
now, the earlier you start being disciplined, the easier it's going to be, because it's going to be a habit, going forward, instead of being 30 something and say, I should really start getting disciplined with my money and spend less than I make. And in order to figure out whether I'm doing that or not, I should probably keep track of a few things.
right.
That's tough.
Yeah. And 30 is still early. I mean, I see that in people in their 40s and 50s too, living their lives. And, I mean, I've seen it in myself. I mean, discipline is a universally important habit to develop, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And, developing those relationships, not only with lenders, but I will go a little step further. In real estate, a lot of times you don't actually make mortgage applications to just one bank at a time of your choosing. You may want to use a mortgage broker. And the mortgage broker is somebody that keeps track of what the appetites are for maybe 100 different banks or institutional lenders of some sort. So that when you go to the broker with your proposal for the particular property you want to buy and your description of your financial situation, not only will the broker help assemble that into a nice package, but they will know which lenders to approach so that you're not wasting time. Like going to your favorite bank locally that you maybe got a couple of loans from before, not knowing that they have changed their appetite. Their board had a meeting, and all of a sudden they don't want a loan on small residential properties or something like that, because they've got enough of them in their portfolio right now. Right. And you didn't know that, and you find out a couple months later after they've been underwriting you for 2 months and then tell you, you know what, actually, we can't do this loan, or we can't give you the same terms that you had before or that we told you we'd give you when you started out here. Now you're 2 months down the road. Maybe your buyer says, or your seller, says, hey, you obviously can't get a loan here. I'm moving on to some other buyer.
That is such a good point. And I've been through that multiple times with local banks. And I find that so interesting. I sort of thought maybe it was a fluke, but now that you're bringing it up, because there was no reason they couldn't have just told me this at the beginning and saved me all the time and effort. And along the way, they're sort of, I mean, I guess it's a customer service thing, but they're holding your hand in theory and telling you it's going to be okay. And, we just
They
need
keep asking you for more and more stuff.
Exactly. And at the end, you're just like, why didn't you just tell me at day 2 that this wasn't going to work out? So thank you for bringing that up. I find that mortgage brokers are I mean, you will pay them a little fee, but it's
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot to add. Yes, there's a small fee that you would pay, but it's well worth the
it's well worth it. Yeah.
the, expense.
So I'm afraid we're running out of time. I'm super excited about your book. I think it sounds really, really valuable. And to like you said at the beginning, to anybody at any stage of this, even if you've stumbled along and been successful, it doesn't matter. Learning is learning, and there's always something new you could think to do, or better way of doing. So.
Yeah, the book has, we own it on the front page. It says The Big Book. I don't know if you noticed it when it was up there, because it is thicker than a lot of books in the genre, which are typically 200 or 300 pages. Mine's like 460 pages. But before somebody says, oh my gosh, I'm glad you said that, because I'm not going to buy it. I can't read a book that big. What I did was and I'll hold it up. I don't know if this will work for Tony or not, but I'll just open it. Yeah. You can see I have written it so that it's chock full of bold type words, sentences, paragraphs, and so on. So that if you did nothing but skip from bold type to bold type to bold type to bold type, you blow through that book, you'll get the whole idea of what's going on. And if it's covering something that you think you want to learn more about, just stop and read all the words. That's how it works. And what do you know who Ron LeGrand is?
I don't.
He's a real estate guru. He's like the guru to a lot of, like, if you named a real estate guru that you did know of right now,
Yeah.
he would probably be their guru.
Okay.
All right. So Ron got a copy of the book and he actually reviewed it and said, I wish I would have had his book when I was getting started.
Wow.
So it's become the go-to resource. The reviewers are, for changing your life with real estate, the reviewers are saying that this is not the kind of book that you read and you say, oh, I read that, and you put it on your shelf. This is the kind of book you read and you park on your desk because you're going to refer to it. It's and it starts with, like I said before, everything from mindset to, it covers all the different types of entities that you might want to choose to start. A lot of people think, oh, LLC, got to do that, but no, maybe that's not right for you, but it covers all the different formation, business formations. And then it covers finding, negotiating, financing deals. And then it gets into preparing a property to sell it or rent it, and how to deal with finding and managing tenants, like all the real, meaty stuff with actual rental properties. But then we move into the tax implications, like I was saying, that are specific to the rental property business, and then preparing financial statements for the bankers and private lenders like myself. And sometimes we want to see that sort of thing. And then understanding the difference between riches and wealth. There's a difference, it's like the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is you have the facts. Wisdom is you know how to apply the facts to do good. And with riches, that's having the money. But wealth is knowing what to do with the money, so that you're living a full life and contributing to your community and doing well. If I had a choice between losing all my money and losing all my relationships, I would lose all my money in a heartbeat. Because my relationships will help me get my money back. If I had a ton of money and no relationships, that'd be really empty. So we talk about that, and then I move into Here's a concluding statement there. Don't make a withdrawal from a relationship just to make a deposit in your bank account.
Oof. Well, that's
You know?
okay.
But then we move into some other best practices for not only business, but your personal life and so on. And the reason why it's also an easy read is because it's not just all words or text. There's like 150 different checklists in there, like bullet point checklists, which take up a lot of space, but there aren't a lot of words on each line, and it covers all these things from tenant screening questions to negotiation questions, due diligence questions, contractor questions, even a list of tools you're going to need, if you're just getting started. So, my hope is that everybody who owns a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad also gets this, because it's sort of a companion. It gets into a little bit more than nuts and bolts than Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is an awesome book that probably more people have than any other book in this genre, by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Wow, that's great. And I do think the nuts and bolts and the checklists and all of those things is very, very valuable. I mean, people pay a lot of money to take courses or be in, large groups to acquire those kinds of things. So,
Yeah,
well, we will have to wrap it. The hard money lending was a whole other topic that I would have loved to spend some time on. So that is also worth people understanding.
Well, we can do that in another episode. We
Sure.
can drill down deep on private lending, union lending, and
yeah, that's a little harder, to find understanding about out there in the world. So okay, well, Joel, thank you so much. This has been so informative and so I think people can definitely hear your dedication to this, and you've got your son involved, and it's apparent that you really believe in this as a way to enhance your life, and and you're talking about doing it for the right reasons, and yeah, it just actually makes it very appealing to everybody, I think. So
thank you, Michelle. I'm glad we connected. Your podcast is a little outside of the strictly real estate genre of podcasts that I do, and so it's refreshing to kind of talk about some different things.
okay, that's great. Yeah, and I love it because I think you eliminated some of the intimidating aspects. If I think all you did was get people to want to learn more, which they can do with your books. So I think that's great.
Yeah. The website, I think, I don't know if you have it up there, but it's very simple. It's just
Yeah,
joelmillerbooks.com.
we've got that up, and I'll put it in the show notes. And yeah, I would, hope everybody's going to buy the book. I'm actually going to buy one for my kids because I have at least one child who's extremely interested in real estate, and I think this will be great. So she won't listen to me, but she'll read your book and listen to you. So there you go.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate everything you shared. And thank you, audience, for showing up for the Money in You podcast. We love it when you listen. We love it when you rate and review the show. And please subscribe. Please share this show with your friends, the ones who have been telling you how they'd like to buy a property someday, or maybe they're already doing it. So share the show and let them in on Joel Miller's secrets. And so thank you so much. You can reach out to me at Michelle, 2Ls, at liveitfreelife.com. And we'll see you next week.